The RNC has given us exclusive access to surveillance videos, wiretaps, and other evidence attached to one of the largest investigations in the force's history. It's a revealing look inside a major drug case as we bring you the inside story of Operation Roadrunner. What you're looking at is police surveillance video focusing on that dark van. It's November 2006. And undercover members of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary are trailing a suspected drug courier.
We figured out pretty quick that this guy was from Quebec and he was here for money.
The suspect takes the ferry to Bell Island where he drives to an unstaffed airstrip. The RNC officer hides in the bushes with a handheld video camera. And then this happens. That's a private plane leased from a company in Quebec. It left Montreal just after daylight, flew non-stop to Bell Island at less than 1,000 feet. Its locator beacon was turned off the entire time. The plane never stops its engines. A passenger throws large boxes out of the side. The suspected courier loads them into the van. He passes back a single suitcase.
They were using creative ways to bring drugs in and creative ways to bring money out.
The entire exchange takes less than 2 minutes.
So it was really something that you weren't expecting. But again, it just shows the extent that they will go to get that drug into the province.
Operation Roadrunner didn't begin on that Bell Island airstrip. It began here on George Street more than a year earlier as an investigation into a sudden spike of violence at local bars.
I started at the strip clubs first downtown.
Jason Shepard of the RNC was asked to find out what was going on.
Informants will call in and say, we got a guy in town, his name is Pat, Big Pat is his nickname. He's got a gun, he's showing people, saying he's a Hell's Angel.
Big Pat was Patrick Shampoo, a Quebecer with a minor criminal record who arrived in St. John's seeking to dominate the drug trade. Shampoo quickly set up shop at a local strip club named Bubbles. It would become the hub of his cocaine operation, a legitimate, if somewhat shady, front for an aspiring drug lord. Shampoo was soon joined by Patrick Dixon, a fellow Quebecer with direct ties to the Hells Angels.
For this! For this!
Dixon was fresh out of jail after being rounded up as part of Operation Springtime, a massive sweep of organized crime in Quebec in 2001. Now, Dixon was getting back into the game, this time in St. John's.
He was the money guy, and Pat Shampoo was the boss that came in first, set the business up, took over the industry as best he could.
The word on the street was that they had cornered the market and that everybody had to do their bidding, and it was only going to be their cocaine and their marijuana that was going to be sold, and that was it. Nobody else was allowed to deal in anything else.
They were called Big Pat and Little Pat, and once they arrived, everything changed on George Street.
These incidents that were coming to our attention and the information that we're receiving weren't incidents that were just happening by happenstance. They were orchestrated, planned assaults.
I know that he ransacked the strip club downtown. He really beat the place up, beat up the chairs, tables, washroom, patrons, cleared the place out.
We received other information that they had come here and had tied or taped guys to chairs and had beaten them.
When we return, the two Pats recruit some local muscle, and their drug operation reaches its financial peak. By 2006, Pat Shampoo and Pat Dixon had seized control of a significant part of the local cocaine market. Operating out of their strip club Bubbles, Big Pat and Little Pat were dominant players in the local coke trade.
Pat Shampoo went back to Montreal. So Pat Shampoo stayed in Montreal, Pat Dixon stayed here. And what they did was they communicated back and forth. Shampoo would arrange drug shipments of cocaine and marijuana from Montreal to Newfoundland. And then Pat Dixon was here in St. John's on the receiving end. He would receive the drugs.
But two guys from Quebec weren't enough. so Patrick Dixon recruited some local talent.
He gathered people around him here in the city that were quite capable. He had boxers around with him. He had some martial arts people close to him.
John Stanley became their top local lieutenant. Stanley was a well-known local boxing coach who did not keep a low profile.
Where is he, that John Stanley? Oh, here he is. Oh, there he is.
Working with Stanley was Mark Kane. Kane was another boxer with a tough reputation.
They were big guys. You know, Kane was well renowned in the area for being quite a boxer. Stanley the same, from what I can gather.
Their job was to distribute the drugs and collect the money. Kane rented an apartment in the west end of St. John's that would serve as a stash house, a place to store drugs and package them for retail. Stanley and Kane handled the day-to-day of the drug operation, taking their orders from Dixon and Shampoo.
And obviously the reason for that is then Shampoo is hands off, Dixon is hands off, essentially, and these are your fall guys then, I guess.
Stanley and Kane operated largely out of a downtown fight club called Hardtack Boxing, but the hub of the operation was the strip club Bubbles, which was managed by Pat Shampoo's girlfriend, Sonia Delisle.
From Bubbles, they could control George Street. They could very easily walk George Street, go into other bars. Just their presence on George Street was sending a message.
At nearly every opportunity, Shampoo and Dixon touted their connection to the Hells Angels, even bringing some big-name bikers to St. John's.
When you come in and say you're a Hells Angel, that carries a lot of weight with it.
This police surveillance photo shows a visit to Signal Hill by Alain Biron, a top-ranking official from the Trois-Rivières Hells Angels. There he is in full gang colors, riding around the city with Patrick Dixon.
He took him to the clubs, drove around the city, so he was backing up what he was saying, that I'm here and I'm here to take over and here are my friends.
The intimidation, the threats, the connection to the Angels, all allowed the gang to become arguably the largest drug operation on the Northeast Avalon.
Cocaine alone was $1 million a month. They had marijuana as well that they were bringing in, 25, 50-pound shipments usually. Came in by boat, came in by car. We had people coming down on bus. There's just no end to it. We had to come by plane. It was just, you know, they were getting that drug in here by whichever means they could. And I'm sure there are ways they got it in that we're not even aware of.
This video shows a team of RNC officers sneaking around the apartment of a suspected drug dealer. It's the middle of the night in a quiet neighborhood in the west end of St. John's. The police were gathering evidence for Operation Roadrunner. They were closing in on Patrick Shampoo.
We watched who he was with, where he was going, who was traveling, who was showing up at his homes, who he was meeting with.
By 2006, Patrick Shampoo and his partner Patrick Dixon had cornered a significant portion of the local drug market. The constabulary watched their every move in St. John's, while Quebec police monitored Shampoo's activities during his frequent trips to Montreal, catching him meeting with known players in the Quebec drug trade and biker gangs. It was a massive police operation, tracking the main suspects across 4 provinces.
At the peak, there were times when we had probably 70 police officers across eastern Canada.
As Shampoo's organization expanded to include local boxers like John Stanley and Mark Kane, the police surveillance expanded to the Hardtack Boxing Club, and from there to a basement apartment in the west end of St. John's. Rented to Mark Kane, it was really just a stash house, a place to store and prepare drugs for market. The police got a special warrant to secretly search the apartment and record its contents. Police call them sneak and peeks.
Our first entry was significant.
This is from the video we showed you earlier. The man in the tracksuit and the blue gloves is Tim Hogan of the RNC drug team. Hogan and his partners search every nook and cranny of the house.
When you go in and you see the cocaine in the kitchen, which is where it was at the time of our entry, everything is done up in 2 and 3 ounce quantities, which is what's being handed out and passed out to the local dealers. Plus they had all the mixing bowls were there.
Hogan moved from the kitchen to the living room, where some brand new luggage held some very valuable cargo.
We found 50 pounds of marijuana.
2 suitcases, each of them stuffed. The marijuana broken into 1 pound vacuum-sealed bags. Hogan and the team count and film the number of bags, then weigh it to see exactly what they found. But this was only one part of the equation.
You normally do not see the two mix. You're normally not going to see money and drugs together.
To find the money, they got a similar warrant to search the home of John Stanley, the top local man in the operation. Hogan and his partners executed even more sneak and peeks, never leaving a trace as they dug into every corner of Stanley's life.
We weighed the money because it takes too long to count it, so you weigh it and you then extrapolate, I guess, a bill, whether it's a $20 bill or a $50 bill or a $100 bill, weighs a gram. And then you try to extrapolate and give an educated guess based on your experience as to how much money is there.
It's unusual to find this kind of money stuffed into a plastic bag in a normal house, but the amounts were relatively small for a drug operation of this size.
You'd see 10,000, 12,000, 15 or 20,000, 25,000, which, you know, sort of gave me, I guess, reason to pause or think, you know, is there somewhere where he's stashing it that we're missing?
But the money wasn't necessarily hidden, it was on the move, being sent out of the province and back to Quebec to Patrick Champoux to pay for the drugs.
We had executed a general warrant on one of the Marine Atlantic ferries.
The cops would trail suspected couriers onto the ferries and search their cars during the trip to Nova Scotia. At times, they hit the mother lode.
The guys located what they believed to be around $300,000, $350,000. So, I mean, that's the kind of money we were talking about. It wouldn't surprise me if there was anywhere between $250,000 and $500,000 or more maybe leaving here, you know, on a monthly basis.
Despite all of the money and all of the drugs they found, the police were forced to let most of it go. Any seizures at this point, and the dealers would know they were onto them, and the top people would get away.
It's tough to let it go. It's tough to let that money go because you know it's illicit. But the greater good is the file.
When we return, the police start seizing drugs and money.
Go prepare it, tell him tonight, bring the money.
And we'll take you inside the world of wiretaps and hidden microphones. Now that the surveillance and the sneak and peeks had given the police a clear view of the organization, they realized what it would take to bring it down.
This investigation, you know, was beyond our normal budget because it required significant resources. We put together a business case and went to the Department of Justice and said, we have a problem here.
Armed with resources and staff, Shepard's team started attacking the edges of the organization.
We had some arrests made along the way. They were getting suspicious that the police were on them.
The police also started intercepting packages, picking off shipments of cash being sent through courier to Patrick Champoux in Montreal. They took thousands of dollars out of their pockets, but the organization kept going.
First, in the investigation, we thought if there was any hint of police involvement, that they would shut down. But what we realized very quickly is they can't shut down because there's too much money involved here.
By 2007, the police were running wiretaps on the organization's phones.
We intercepted 170,000 phone calls. That's a lot of calls.
In the case of John Stanley, police had a microphone planted in his house. The money seizures and the arrests were making people nervous.
They hit 3 of our people this week, right at the time that Kane was supposed to go meet with them. Oh, there's a rat. Yeah, we know there is. There's just on the phone. When we do, we'll take care of it.
Police were also tracking a new player named Michael Sampson. Well known in martial arts circles, Sampson had no criminal record. His role in the organization was effectively that of a courier.
Once Sampson came into the picture and he met with Dixon, we knew that we had, there's something taking place here.
Sampson didn't know it, but his car was bugged, letting Shepard's team eavesdrop on a critical conversation between Sampson and Patrick Dixon, the organization's money man who always stayed arm's length from the dirty work.
He meets with Dixon. Dixon gives him very clear instructions.
Don't mix the two. I told you.
Don't mix the two, the money and the drugs.
Go get the stuff. Go prepare it, do it. Tell him tonight, bring the money. Okay, perfect. You got the gun, you got the scale. Go pick up the stuff.
Go get the drug, cut it, weigh it.
Don't talk to your business to anyone. Never mind to who you did. Don't talk to anyone. If someone is bug or someone is this, don't talk. I don't want to get caught for that, for a stupid thing like that. I saw this before. Not with me, okay?
But it was too late. The car was bugged, and the police followed Sampson as he did Dixon's bidding. First to the Capitol Hotel, where he picked up the drugs from a courier named Ali Farouk. To an apartment in Mount Pearl to stash the drugs. To Walmart to buy the powder to cut the cocaine. Back to Mount Pearl to get the drugs. Then to an apartment building in the West End, where other members of the organization would prepare the drugs for sale on the street. Finally, Sampson returns to the Capitol Hotel to bring payment to the courier. All of Dixon's instructions followed to the letter.
Conspiracy is just an agreement between two people to break the law. And it was very clear from that one piece of evidence on that one car bug that really, tied a significant amount of drugs and control and painted a whole picture.
The next day, police raided the apartment building on Anspach Street and the apartment in Mount Pearl. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of drugs taken in a single night. Very quickly, things started to change.
Shampoo and Dixon had phones that they didn't use for any other purpose, only to speak to each other. They weren't as free with their phones as they used to be. Like I said, they went through 60 phones in that 8-month period.
Knowing the gang was feeling the heat, the police decide to move in.
It just got to a point where, you know what, it's time to take them. We've got enough, and let's just end this and make our arrests and put these guys in court.
By the fall of 2007, the police had built a strong case against Pat Shampoo's drug operation. Tracking drugs and money from St. John's to Montreal, they had a clear picture of the criminal organization. But then they started noticing something new.
By the end of it, they were starting to get into home construction. The home construction was a business. It's a way of bringing your group together, and you do work, and you appear to have legitimacy, and if someone asks what you're doing, you can say, I own this company, I do this, I own a club.
It gave them a way to launder the money they made from drugs by funneling it through legitimate operations.
In this situation, I think that they thought that they had time, that we probably weren't as close as we were, and that they had time to set up something legitimate, so that if we did come their way a year from now, a year and a half from now, well, then the money was hidden and the money was now legitimate.
So the RNC decided to move. It was October 11th, 2007.
We did probably 10 or 12 houses and made arrests here and in Quebec at the same time.
The arrests in Newfoundland went off without a hitch. Patrick Dixon, John Stanley, Mark Kane, and Mike Sampson were all rounded up. Quebec police were ready to move on the ringleader Pat Shampoo at a cottage in Quebec.
When they searched it, they found Sonia Delisle in the cabin. Pat Shampoo wasn't there, but Marc-Andre Hinz was in the cabin.
Sonia Delisle was Shampoo's girlfriend. She had managed the strip club Bubbles during her time in St. John's. Marc-Andre Hinz was a childhood friend of Patrick Dixon. He was the former head of the Trois-Rivières Hells Angels, and Hinz was on Quebec's top 10 most wanted list after being on the run for 3 years. At the time of his arrest, Hinz had a fake Newfoundland driver's license. He had clearly been hiding in the province, likely with the help of Shampoo's operation.
Marc-Andre Hinz made big news in Montreal. He was a very big fish.
Hinz was an unexpected surprise. But their prime target, Patrick Shampoo, was nowhere to be found.
Pat Shampoo was now on the run.
So after years of surveillance, dozens of covert entries, and months of wiretaps, Big Pat had gotten away. The focal point of the investigation had slipped through their fingers. That is, until a remarkable coincidence.
I had two very good police officers in Montreal that worked with me, Sergeant Nick Milano and Sergeant Eric Vecchio.
Eric Vecchio was a veteran police officer with extensive experience investigating organized crime. Most recently, he was a witness at Quebec's Charbonneau inquiry into corruption in the construction industry. 8 months after Shampoo had given them the slip, Vecchio went on a fishing trip.
On May the 24th weekend, just turned out that Sergeant Vecchio, Eric, took his girlfriend and they went trouting in the eastern Quebec. He was aware of the file, he knew all the players, he had done surveillance, he basically controlled the Montreal side of it for our team. And when he got in line at a gas bar, here was Pat Shampoo ahead of him buying some groceries. So he made the arrest.
Blind luck delivered Big Pat, one of the only people in all of Quebec who would even recognize Shampoo and know he was wanted, just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Between here and Quebec, Operation Roadrunner led to 28 arrests and convictions. Shampoo and Stanley got 5 years each. Dixon got 7 years because of his prior drug convictions. Their underlings, Kane and Sampson, each got house arrest. What started as an investigation into a sudden spurt of violence on George Street ended as one of the most successful drug investigations in RNC history.